Yeah, I'm not Simon. My name is Tasha Mellins Cohen. I'm here from the Microbiology Society, so I'm an actual society publisher. With the very best will in the world to Wiley, I would say you are a publisher who works with societies. We've heard a lot about what the big publishers can do working with societies to help us, but I'd really like to know how many small societies or medium-sized societies do we have here who self-publish? Hands in the air. 2. As societies, we know that publishing has been seen historically as a reliable revenue stream which underpins a lot of our other activities, whether that is grants, events, our policy teams, whatever it might be. And whether we've retained our publishing activities in-house or pushed them out, working with Wiley, working with Elsevier, working with OUP, whoever we're working with, we still very much rely on those revenues. However, I'm now talking very much to the societies who've retained their publishing activities in-house. We, as small society publishers, are facing quite conflicting imperatives. We need to do a lot more. We need to deliver more content. We need to meet new demands from our researchers, from our editors, our authors, our reviewers. We need to meet demands from funders. We need to meet demands from libraries. And we need to do that against a background of multiple business models. You know, we've got 6 journals at the Microbiology Society. Our big deal is pretty tiny. But we've got to do all of that with less. We've got fewer staff, we've got subscription attrition, we've got shorter time frames. You know, we all know that actually the expectation now is that accepted articles are published within days, not within months. So we need to really think, given that we're doing more with less, is the revenue, our margins, sustainable? And if not, whether that hits us directly in our pockets or through our relationships with our partners, over the next few years, we're going to have to adapt to a really significant shift in our financial circumstances. And I'm here to tell you, don't panic. So I put together a bit of a financial model. I'm going to try not to fall off this step. And this model takes some revenue inputs and some expenditure inputs and a whole load of scenario configuration types, and takes that data and maps future revenues and future margins. And because I'm a reasonably nice person, I have made this model available under a CC BY license. It's on Figshare. So please take this away, have fun, shout at me if it doesn't work for you. I have tested it with a few other societies. Now, before I introduce you to the model, I have to say these are completely fictional inputs. I have put some information in there. It is not the Microbiology Society's data. You can check our accounts at Companies House if you don't believe me. Now, hopefully, I can flip to the Excel sheet. There we go. Oh, thank you. So, I'm a reasonably nice person, so I have put a Notes and References tab on the front page that explains how to use the workbook. Ooh, I have to work backwards. The short summary is if you put your inputs into the yellow boxes, everything else is done for you. Can everybody see this, or do I need to make it bigger? Okay. Can we... I can't even see where my mouse is. Here we go. Is that big enough? One more step. Okay. So, fill in the yellow boxes. I have divided it up by hybrid journals versus pure OA titles. So this is aimed at journals, not at books. I'm sure it's fairly easy to adapt it to books. So what I have chucked in here is some subscription revenues, some open access revenues on the hybrid journals, numbers of published articles, our average costs, or hypothetical average costs, and then down at the bottom, I can't figure out the pointy bit. These are the scenario configuration options in the section at the bottom that says, on this particular model, we have 3% attrition every year, so 97% of our subscribers renew. Fair enough. We have to assume that even though our full article processing charge might be £1,800, as it says down here, Copyright Clearance Centre charge a licence fee for everything that they process, so we actually only realise 85% of our APCs. This is a fairly well-growing publisher. You're getting 15% article growth per year. So you've got all of these scenario configuration options. And then you have two models on these two different tabs. One is not showing right, sorry. I'm not going to expand all of the tables, but there we go. This particular model shows what your subscription attrition might be. So what your revenues will be if you have no flip to open access. So you can see the data from the Start tab, so that's the thing with the yellow boxes, is showing me that I've got 250 open access articles in my hybrid journals this year. I've got 5 million of subscription revenue, 350,000 of APC revenue, so 5.3 million total. And then it just extrapolates that out using the growth and various other bits that I've put in that Start Data tab to tell me by year 9 how much revenue I can be expecting to receive. Now, the interesting thing about this is this offset bit. I will explain that when I come on to the APC flip in a minute. But basically, you carry on scrolling all the way down here. You can see your total revenues, you can see your costs, and you can see your surplus. So your revenues, your costs, your surplus per year. Also at the bottom, you've got your revenue per article. So you can see how much money you are making on every article, and what your costs are on every article, and what your margin's going to be over the 10 years. I'm sorry for introducing you to an Excel workbook straight after lunch. I'm aware that this is quite tedious. The thing that gets interesting is when you look at this flip to OA. So this is anticipating from our model here that we're going to get 10% of articles every year flipping from a hybrid subscription model to open access. So what we're seeing here is that the attrition is still being modelled on this line here, but our article processing charge revenue is going right up. So the total hybrid revenue looks like that. Now this particular publisher, again, going back to my Start Data tab, I've said that we have a hybrid offset arrangement. So if this publisher makes £180,000 of extra APC revenue, they're going to offset 90% of that against the subsequent year's subscriptions. I know this is complicated, bear with me. What this model here does is say how much of that revenue you need to offset, and therefore how much your total revenue will be. So, flipping back to my slides, if I can. Where's it gone? Sorry, this is, thank you. I'm new, I'm not controlling this. The brief summary. Those were our inputs. This is what happens to our margin. And every publisher that I have run this with, and every scenario configuration I put in, gives me very similar results. You can all read a chart. Margins are being squeezed. Whether we flip to OA or not, our margins are going to go down. However, take heart. These are still bloody healthy margins. You know, what we're saying here is that we're still going to be seeing 10 to 20% margins at the end of this scenario. That's pretty healthy. Maybe not in traditional publishing terms, but in the real world, 10 to 20%, I'll take that. So, managing these shrinking margins. We had a bit of a brainstorm when I ran that model to begin with. And we came up with a whole range of things that we can do within the society to manage these margins. And there's the obvious stuff around cutting your costs. If there is fat on your operation, you can trim it. That might be within publishing, it might be within the wider society. You could look at outsourcing. So I know we all know about production outsourcing, but there's also editorial outsourcing, and there's a whole range of other things that can potentially be done more cost effectively outside of the organisation. I'm not necessarily saying that is the right way to go, but it is something to consider. And the really obvious one, ensure that your activities cover their costs. So, we're going to close a journal because it's not paying for itself. That is not something that most societies would consider doing, but it's something that you need to think about in this environment. More excitingly, you can think about increasing your revenues. So yes, there's the consortia deals. They're great. We might not have a big deal in the sense of Wiley's several thousand journals, but we can certainly talk to consortia about getting our journals into more venues at better rates for them, but new revenue for us. You could increase your subscription prices with your article processing charges. That does have risks around alienating or deterring your customers. You can look at your pricing for things like republication rights and pay-per-view. Honestly, when was the last time you guys looked at that? Because when I did this last year, it transpired that nobody had actually assessed these in over 6 years. You can launch new products. Now, in publishing, we all know that launching a new journal incurs costs well before it will start to return revenue, but publishing is not the only place where you can launch new products. There's professional development activities that you can deliver through combining your publishing and your membership activities, for example. And you can examine options around expanding existing offerings. So, for example, the Microbiology Society, we've got some fantastic events, and we're expanding our focus meeting operation because we can deliver more value to our members, but also help to offset some of the margin squeeze in publishing. There's partnering. So, great, partner with Wiley, partner with Elsevier, whoever you want to partner with. Be aware that when you ship out your publishing operation to a big publisher, you lose a lot of control over your own destiny. So I am a big fan of keeping publishing in-house. Sorry, Simon. But you can still partner with people like Wiley for sales, even if you're not going to work with them on your editorial. You know, there's ways to partner that aren't all the way in. You can also look at partnering with sister societies. If we serve the same need and very much the same member base, do we both need to run separate publishing operations and incur double the cost? It's a question that's worth asking. Income diversification, obviously. Everyone talks about diversification, but what does it actually mean? Well, we've thought about things like creating learning packs for early career members using our 70-odd year archive and the knowledge of our more senior members. We've looked at sponsorship and advertising packages that go across beyond just journals into events, into our policy work, and obviously fundraising, which is not something we've historically done a great deal of. And then we got to the fun stuff. So these are the things that we have thought about but haven't actually progressed with because we need to get our house in order first. So we all know we have fixed prices per article, things that we have to spend for every single article. But there's also a cost associated with every journal. Do we need to have 6 journals? What if we coalesced around a central, single database type product instead of having multiple titles? What if we went out to our sister microbiology societies and said, why don't we all collaborate on sales without necessarily involving one of the big publishers? What if we actually thought really radically, if we don't have this publishing income, which bits of the society activities do we cut or change? You know, with our members, we thought about which of our activities we do best and which actually they're better suited to doing. So, for example, all of our outreach activities, well, the society staff are not necessarily all microbiologists. So we've worked with our members to support them in delivering outreach instead of doing it through the staff. That happened before this modelling came into play, but we're now thinking about whether that can be extended. So, I'm sure I'm pretty tight on time, so I'm going to wrap up. The thing that I would say here, take heart. While the margins are shrinking, there is still life in the old dog, and society journals do matter.